Well, hello there guys and girls, my name's Mikey, welcome back to my room. It's time for another tutorial, and today we're going to be learning how to draw the human ear. Now, whether it's anime or manga, cartoon, illustration, or even life studies and something more realistic, what we're going to do today is have a look at the human ear and some of those funny shapes, and we're going to break them down into very simple building blocks, just so that it's not really something you have to worry about in the future, and of course you can give ears to all of your characters so that they can hear stuff and live their lives. So basically I'm going to be using a super disposable mechanical pencil as ever. I've got super cheap printer paper, quite a few sheets down so that I have a nice surface. So basically don't wait for the best equipment. If you guys want to have a go at home, try to keep pace with what we're going to do today. Now what I'm going to do firstly is actually just do a super basic building block human head. So I'm going to start with a circle that I'm going to turn into a sphere. And don't worry, this isn't really the ear tutorial right now. This is the ear placement tutorial, where we think about where you might actually pop an ear on your characters, depending on what they're up to. So I've done a tutorial already on how to build up a head for your characters, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about this. We've got the center line down. We know this character's looking off to the left somewhere. Maybe there's a cheek line down here. I'm keeping my construction lines as dark as possible, just so that you guys can hopefully see it clearly at home. And when it comes to the side of the head of your characters, when we have the side of the sphere, what we do is we kind of flatten it off. We pretend that, okay, this is actually now a flattened edge to this particular sphere shape. So that's all kind of a straight line on a straight surface. And where the bottom of the jaw sweeps back for your character and joins up into the head, goes somewhere up towards that center line, I use this cross shape to help me understand where the ear is going to be. And I usually start just below the X in the middle, and I create this kind of rough paddle shape, just like so. I bring it down to the bottom part of where the circle is, or where it meets against the jaw line, and that is basically how I decide to put an ear on a character. You'll notice that it's relatively far back along the head, they're not right up at the front. And if we have just another go down here again, super simple building block method, just getting that circular shape in very, very badly, I do apologize, and then center line down the middle, and then let's just say this is kind of an elliptical shape that's cut off a bit of the edges of this circle that sweeps down across the jawline here to go towards the front of the face, and jawline sweeping up and away like that. There's our center line for the circle, the top of the brow. All of the features are going to be sitting in here, but again I'm imagining that X somewhere just about here is where we might have some relatively sticky outy ears on this character, like so, and then just try to mirror that as best you can on this side. So that's what I'm doing when I'm thinking about where the ears are going to go. And if I'm being super lazy, or basically how to put it, you can get away with doing ears wrong quite a lot because of what's going on. So they are relatively forgiving as long as you don't focus on them too much. But what I might do sometimes is something really, really simple like this. I might just go for a lump here, which will be the tragus. I might just draw a line that goes up and around the edge, and leaves a big gap in the bottom for the earlobe around here, and then I might just put a couple lines or a couple shapes just in like that. So if we saw that from this side at the front, I would just lump out the tragus, go up and follow this arc around the edge. This is actually called the helix, but we'll get into the details soon. Basically I'm just putting a border on the inside edge as we sweep round, and you can see the lobe down there, and again maybe one or two cheeky little shapes just like that. That's not a correct ear, but it is a very quick, easy ear for your characters if you just need to get something out of the way. You can get them fairly larger on old people, and you might want to make them a little bit smaller for your female characters. So that's the super basics out the way. Where are you going to put an ear? You're going to stick them on the side of your character's head. Let's talk about the kind of general shape of ears, and I'm going to do basically two versions, one above the other. This will be my guideline. Because there are all sorts of ears out there, so use this as a guide, but don't worry too much about getting the shapes exactly. Now I kind of do one of two methods. I either imagine that I've got a big kind of ellipse over here, kind of egg-like shape, something like that, and then a smaller circle just below it, and then I follow this curve round. If we imagine that this line here is the same as this line here, it's just marking the center side of the head, and what I tend to do is I might follow this shape round, this one big ellipse, which is the top part of the ear, and then just sweep down and let that join up a bit to this smaller circle at the bottom. If we say this is the outline of our ear for this particular section, that's a very easy way that you can just think about this paddle shape. Another way a lot of people like to do things, if they're doing a slightly more chunkier and graphic version of their illustration, is they get a rectangle and they put the rectangle tilted onto one of its corners. So if you get a rectangle very, very vaguely like this, just like so, then you might find that somebody is illustrating in a manner that's a little bit more graphical, and so they'll just kind of put a bit of curve to it, but follow a bit more of this kind of rigid shape, curving down and round, not going right to that outer edge, and then curving down and in before going back up. And what I tend to do personally is I do something in between. I'm always imagining a kind of paddle shape that's also kind of curved. But to dive straight in and talk about what's going on with the various features. Now again, what I always like to do, in terms of where the ear meets the head, I start off vaguely in the middle and a little bit in, and I just worry about getting that tragus shape in. So that's that kind of little lump that sits over and protects a little bit your ear hole. I like to pop in the tragus. I imagine a nice big earlobe around about here. And then what I do is I'm going to do the helix again. And this is a part of the ear which is basically just that kind of border. If you run your finger across your own ear, this relatively thin border that follows the shape all the way up and around. So I'm just going to do that. Just got a bit of a funny angle here for where my arm is, so I'm just going to get that angle in there. And then what this does is as it comes down towards the tragus, it's going to sweep in like this. And so what you've got down here, where the tragus is going on, is this kind of area where the ear hole is. And if we go back up in this direction once more, we're going to go up where we've got the helix, but we're going to go in. So we're going up in here and we're going to do what's called the anti-helix, which is basically a curve that's again going to follow this natural shape, but I'm doing it right inside here, you'll notice, and I'm sweeping it up to kind of go and meet in the top. So this is all the high ground, so to speak, and then what we're doing in here is we're making another really big curving shape, just like so, something like that, which is high ground again. And this shape tends to tuck into here and also kind of go off and do its own thing. And this shape here, this big paddle shape, which is the anti-helix, depending on the ear, might have a little dimple or divot that goes in around about there. So what I will do is I'm going to put some kind of construction lines and shading on both of these in just a moment, but we're going to talk about this again with this kind of shape ear and do a really similar thing. I think just doing it twice is going to help because those ears have some funny shapes. So straight in, I'm just going to worry about the tragus. Fantastic. Maybe I'm going to go right down and think about this lump of space here, which will be the earlobe. So I'm going to let that be, and then I'm just going to leave a little bit of a gap here, but follow a line right around the edge for the helix, our border around the outside edge of the ear, sweep back down on this side, and just as I'm getting back down into Tragus Town, I'm going to just pop it in like that. And then now going back down to the earlobe again, I'm coming up but just further inside. Maybe I'll use some slightly different angles, but I'm doing essentially the same thing. I'm going to sweep up and I'm going to go back in this way for the anti-helix. And this version I might have it so that it's kind of occupying the more of the top section up here of the ear, before equally having a little dimple or divot as it goes in and tucks behind the ear itself. And how much of these lines you want to draw in is entirely up to you. It kind of helps when you're working with your shading a bit because there's so many ridges and divots going on. But once we break these down into just for sections, you're going to see how even front on or from the rear, you don't have to worry too much. So here's our ear hole going down there. And again, we've got these basic sections doing their thing. So again, we've just got this outside edge right round here. Make sure you get that guy in. That's always going to do you some good. This can follow right down onto the earlobe, which is where you've got your piercings or whatever you might want. You've got your tragus, basically the bump that protects your ear hole down here. And then the anti-helix, the big sweeping lumpy part of the ear that comes in and just cuts back round and up. So with that kind of idea in mind, what I'm going to do is just look at the ear a bit more from the front, and we'll just talk about these bits once more. I'm going to make this ear ever so slightly more curvy when we look at it from the front end and talk about how it pops out. Now you might have characters with ears that have like really big kind of Dumbo elephant types. Not to worry at all, big ears are fine. But you might have characters whose ears are a little bit flatter against the head when you look at them face on. So what I tend to do is just start from where the top might be, and I do a really squished version of this shape. So I'm still coming out of the top, and then I'm just gonna sweep down really thinly, curving in, and then out just a little bit for the earlobe, like so. So I'm imagining now that I'm looking from this direction onto this part, and so that whole tragus point is still my starting point. It's a little bit of a lump here. Obviously it's a bit flatter as everything's squished in. I've got a thicker edge as I'm going up round this particular helix example, right round here, and then down to the lobe. And I'm going to get a line in here, i.e. this edge, to do most of the work for the lobe in this situation. And then now where we've got the anti-helix, this section of it here sticks out of your ear, this part and this part, sticks out of your ear a fair bit. So as this sweep comes down, it might actually stick all the way out or just ever so slightly go over this particular section before it sweeps in much sooner. And that's where I've got this shape coming in. So this is the part that goes into the ear, and this shape that sweeps round is this edge here of that anti-helix. And again, you might put a bit of a divot in there. But basically, you've just got to flatten out what you're up to and imagine that this lump is just kind of bumping out the top of your ear a little bit, but don't worry about it too much beyond that. Now, in a really similar vein, if we have a look behind, so I'm going to swing all the way around and we're going to look this way onto our character's ear. We've got this shape again, but we only have to worry about an outside edge and the back part of the ear. So again, I'm just sweeping in, not perfectly, but loosely getting that ear idea. And this time, if you imagine the helix, the outside edge, we're going to look at that in a slightly thicker manner this time. I'm just going to draw along that edge, just like so. And I'm going to go back down for this part of it, and then right here, all I'm doing is popping in this kind of attaching cone shape. So I might not meet it right up at the top section there. I'm still showing that there's this kind of lip going on with the ear, but really if you reach behind your ear and have yourself a little bit of a feel for what's going on, you might feel that there's a little bit of a divot just down there, but really you've got overall just a big bit of surface area here to work with. So it's fairly simple to see an ear from behind, but as long as you get it right, it's really going to help out with your character's designs. And what I'm going to do is take one more go so that we can play around with this, and we'll do a longer elf ear that we should be able to fit just up here. And by the way, I don't have an official version of what makes a good elf ear, but what I tend to do is play around with and extend what we already know. So this time I'm going to go off into a point right out here, and I'm still going to have a nice bit of earlobe down here before things sweep up like so. So we'll say this is kind of our elven ear design. Back to the tragus. Here's our bump. Here's our lobe. Great. And then up at the top, this rim, I'm actually just going to take it right to the edge. So this version of the helix isn't really a helix shape at all, but it's still providing some of the structure and support right out to the tip of the ear. And then where we've got our bits that kind of sweep in and up and around for the anti-helix, what I tend to do is just extend that out and maybe add another lump. So our anti-helix shape might just do this for the moment, like so. But up along this edge, I might just decide to put in one more sweep like that, just to show that there's a bit of a ridge here. And again, it's all about saying that, okay, there is structure to this ear, which is all part of what keeps it up. And for anyone not in the know, little tiny fact, the reason why we have all these weird lumps in our ears instead of just a convenient hole to go straight into our eardrums is because the way sound plays around here before it goes in helps us understand not only if we're hearing something on our left side or our right side, but also if we're hearing something that's coming from below and echoing funny in here, or something that's coming from above and just coming straight down into here. That's why your ears are so weird, basically. That's why they're so annoying to have a go at. So what I'm going to do basically, guys, is just drop into a little bit of time lapse. I'm going to separate up the different sections of his ears so they're nice and clear for you guys at home, and then we'll just pop back at the end just to recap a few of the basics.
What it is, baby, just draw them some more. What it is, baby, just draw them some more.
Okay, yeah, and welcome back. So what I wanted to do is just finish up these lines a little bit to make it a bit more concrete for you guys. This one I just wanted to map the actual contours or the curves of the surface so that you understand that most of these sections of the ear you are dealing with a bit of a bowl shape. Here's the edge of a bowl. This rim, which is a cylinder which follows it all the way around but does curve and hook back in just above the tragus. And then you've got this second shape, the anti-helix, doing a really similar thing, but it's just spiraling up into the top as it comes back towards the front of the face. It opens up, but also kind of just drops down in a wider middle part into a little bit of a divot. Now, when it comes to just kind of mapping it out with a bit of light and shadow, again, I just wanted to do this to show where you kind of get bits of the ear which are peeking out from underneath the lip. So just like you've got here on a helix, the anti-helix is just starting to peek out or pop out to the side, as you can see here, so it's going to catch a bit more of the light instead of just being under shadow. Rear of the ear, relatively simple, just get used to the exact same profile when you draw ears on the front of your characters, but this time round you've just got the edge to worry about around the back. You can run your finger along here, and this is the area that your mum always tells you to wash behind. And when it's with the Elven Ears, very simple thing, but I do just extend what's going on a little bit further back, and instead of following a bottom edge, I do just kind of turn that into a bit of a curve there. That's just how I tend to do things. And again, what I should have said right at the beginning when we were talking about the placement is that this kind of means for us that this ear here is going to be starting roughly where we have the eyes of our character, which is absolutely great. And the bottom part of this ear here is going to be, if we follow this all around, roughly where the bottom of the nose of our character is going to be too. So that's all part of where the ear lines up with proportions of your character. And don't forget, if you've got a character who's basically looking up, then the ears are going to appear a bit lower down. And if you've got a character who's looking down, then the ears might appear a little bit further up because they're a bit further behind. Just something to bear in mind when you've got characters looking in different angles. So guys, thank you so much for watching along with this How to Draw Ears tutorial. It is based off of your suggestions, so get yourselves in the comment section below if there's something else you want us to do a tutorial on, and I will whack something together. And remember, The reason why I can make these free tutorials on YouTube, because I want it to be free, I want you guys to all be able to have access to this, is because I have some fantastic patrons on Patreon who support me. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Tiago F, Zoe T, Grizzly, Tom K, LMA Gamer, Fatness, Bryce L, Ryder2KX, Kamari J, Cuddlebum, The Travelling Wolf, Joe R, Garrett C, Michael S, Trent H, Gabriel C, Raymond G, Jorgen A, Wesby, Beta, Connor M, Raymond B, Julio Felix O, Rob, John HV, Matthew G, Simon B, Gareth, Taylor S, Janet W, Hamongchi L, Thomas C, Angry H, Johnny Y, Ollie, Brownie Wars, Garrett, Christian L, Minion715, ICZ, Wendell S, Zahaki, Rombly, Matthew B, and Kurt D. Much love to you guys. Thank you so much for the support. And there are a huge number of people more on other tiers on Patreon who are also making all of this possible. So a great big thank you to all of you guys. Links, of course, available or below if you ever want to check out what's going on there. All the little bits really help out. But again, I'm going to see you guys in the future for another drawing tutorial. Let me know what it's going to be. Have yourselves a bloody lovely week, guys. I'll see you next time. Take care.